Rhino here, Vibrancy Entertainment, here to show you a repair on the djm-900nxs2 DJ mixer. I'll admit, full disclosure, I've done this repair a couple times, and one time I got everything off, I got everything resoldered, and I ended up having some problem with the booth monitor output. It was the oldest mixer that we had. We have a couple of these units for service, and what often happens is the level depth knob goes out, or the potentiometers, just the EQ, just the knobs, what are called potentiometers, which is like the component underneath the knob, gets loose and kind of wears out mechanically. So what we do is we take it apart and solder on new ones. But and they look something like this. So I did have, it's kind of shook my confidence a little bit. I'm not sure if it was something that I did or if it was part of the mix. I mean, it had to have been something related to what I did, but I am not able to figure out exactly what happened, why I would have lost booth output. You know, I checked, I resoldered a booth output knob. I checked everything. I have no reason to believe that the booth output wasn't working prior to my servicing it, but I truly couldn't diagnose it. And while I was kind of haphazardly double checking stuff, I ended up shorting out the whole board. So be real careful when you put power in this thing and have it apart. You can cause major damage to some circuitry, which now basically I've just completely shelved it. The unit is kind of in our deep storage just for parts. If I need to pull a PCB out of it, maybe I can get that to work. Anyway, we're going to start off. I'm going to remove all the knobs. You can maybe take a picture of your mixer to remember where all the knobs go, but there's references online that you can kind of use to help out with that. Some knobs tend to wear out, so I'm probably going to have these replaced. You can see they're just starting to wear out. I find it's hard to replace one. OEM Pioneer parts are hard to get, and there's knockoff like knobs and such, but they look different. You know, they look okay, but they're not perfectly identical. So what I've been doing is I like swap all the knobs at once, so you can't really see a distinction between old and new. Anyway, that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna take the knobs off, put them off, and then I'll jump into it. All right, here we are. I've got all the knobs off. Just a few previews of what I'm gonna be looking at here. I'm replacing this level depth potentiometer, and none of these have any issues, but I'm going to make sure I tighten them up. So I'm going to tighten up all the lock nuts on all of the knobs, and then I'm going to replace the potentiometer on this one entirely. It's kind of my compromise from taking the whole thing apart. This is what I did when the time I had that issue I described earlier. There's PCB access that's easier to get to without, if you want to do the potentiometers, you have to take the EQ portion, you have to take the mixer apart quite a bit more. So I'm trying to get this thing up and running, but I'm also like a little gun shy from doing that. So you got these black screws. You don't have to mess with the faders on this one, those can actually stay. I'm going to pull out these black screws. I like this electric screwdriver for doing all this kind of stuff. Real slick, real slick. All right. So this is going to be a long format video. This is not the kind of repair that you can do when you're in a rush. I would plan at least 2 hours to do this. It might be quicker than that, but first time you do anything is always tough. Like I said, this electric screwdriver really helps get these out. I also like using a headlamp, help with visibility, getting like a nice light. I actually got some new wash lights for my shop bench. I'm not using them right now. They're like absurdly bright. Therefore, we need like work lighting or just like kind of area lighting for an event, which we don't often do. Usually we do like effects lighting. So I picked up these super like 300 watt LED washes. They were on Amazon and super affordable. I feel like lighting equipment in general is just becoming like very affordable. Like when I started doing stage lighting, it was hard to find moving heads that weren't like super big, high production moving heads, like smaller ones, and they were expensive, you know. And now it's like the same. All right, so here's something to be really mindful of. When you take this off, there's a bunch of lenses that we are going to be messing with here. So you see, I'm gonna go up here. You see how this clip, you know, this lens that lights up, there's an LED underneath it, then the lens kind of shows you the words or kind of diffuses the light and makes it look good. But these things are very tricky to mess with, because when you are moving this front panel, they fall out. Okay, so here's my solution. What I've been doing is I use kind of clear shipping tape, and maybe there's something better, and I will tape the lenses on the panel. Okay, and then I'll be really careful not to like make sure that the tape won't get in the way of where the lens sits. I don't think any of these are like particularly tight fits, but I kind of like push the tape down around the edge so it doesn't get in the way too much. I feel like I need to like wash my hands because like my hands are oily. Oh well. So I'm taping. You have 5 clip lenses, then you've got these Beat FX, and then see, this lens fell out. This is missing the mic. It's like I was so careful. You saw me, I took it right off. So having a clean workstation when you do this is, there's nothing more important. I just have so much stuff just like on my desk. I would have to spend half a day cleaning to like make it truly ideal. I don't have half a day of time to like spend on that. This is rusty. That's interesting. You know what's also interesting is, since I have that check this out. Here's my broken faceplate, and look, here's that lens right there. It should go right there, and it's like this tiny little circular piece that somehow has fallen out since and didn't really pop up anywhere yet. So put that in there. Yeah, tape the lenses. That's my solution. I don't know if anyone has a better one, but I feel like this might be like one of my, you know, like when you're like the first one to kind of like coin an idea. I feel like that's where I'm at. So this is then you also have other couple pieces like these foam. There's like these black foam pieces that sit around the effects buttons. There's these Q buttons that come out. This is a very tedious process for putting this mixer, pulling it apart. All right. So just best thing is to work in a really clean area. So if something kind of falls out, you're not like scrambling to look for it. All right. I don't know if I'm gonna edit this video. It might just be like a long video where I just kind of like ramble half the time. You know, we'll see. We'll see what this ends up becoming. You know, it's funny because I actually recorded my repair process of that other mixer that I fried. And I made a whole video over it, and then I ended up like having that issue, and I'm like, oh my goodness, how ridiculous. All right, I got all my Q buttons, or my clip buttons. Then I got the beat effects. There should be 6 of those because there's one up here. And this little one, this little mic on button. Let's see, what else? What else is needed here? Okay, a few things I'm going to make a point to do. I also love having a precision screwdriver. I actually have 2 of these because sometimes having 2 is convenient. Using the these tiny Phillips head screws, Phillips slotted. Can it focus? Yeah, they work great for like picking stuff out that's tricky to reach. So like this little foamy cover, that's coming. Put that in my thing, my box of things not to lose. Yeah, because fixing is half the battle. The other half is like, where did everything go and getting it back where it belongs. You got these USB covers right here. You got this USB cover over here. You got Q buttons, I think at least 6. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You've also got these pieces pop out. These are kind of like, I don't know what to call them, like the part that holds the lens or supports it. Lens support, some sort of barrel. Some of them will stay in there okay, but the problem is some of them just fall out. So when you're taking this thing apart, you're having pieces fall and you're like, oh, where'd that come from? Or where did that go? Here's, that one kind of stays in. These switches, these black switches. And I think that's it. Famous last words. Okay, so this is like your box of stuff that you have to like take off that are like kind of the big plasticky pieces. I'm going to set that to the side because that's kind of done for the most part. There's still a few other things. All right, now to get this thing off, there's 2 screws that are in the front of the mixer. I'm making sure my camera's, yeah, you can see it. 2. And here's a trick. This is something it took me a minute to figure out. Was the way to get this front panel off is you slide it to the left. No, slide to the right. I knew you slid it one direction. Okay, and then this gives you access to 2 silver screws that have to come out to take this front panel off. Okay, I like doing, kind of putting my screws in order of me taking them out. Ideally, I would have like a big plastic tote with lots of little spots in it. On the back, there are 2 screws that have little arrows pointing to them, kind of near your inputs. And those have to come out too. Okay, there we go. All right, I think we're ready to take this panel off now. I like to have a soft surface to put it on. So I have this like egg crate shell, which is clearly buried under stuff that I need to move. All right, here's all my taped lenses. That's my brilliant idea. I'm gonna coin that because I've been on the internet for a while looking up repairs and never heard anyone mention that. And I think it's like, I don't even know how to get it all back together without doing something like that. I mean, I've done it before, but it's just like you always have that one piece that's just really loosey-goosey. Okay. All right, so here we go. We got a little room, That's a hilarious way to describe it. We've got enough room to flip this thing over. Okie dokie. So, I think what I'm going to do... What am I going to do? I can't remember if I want to take off these bits first and then unscrew it. Yeah, I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to unscrew it. Let me take a look here. You have to open it like a book. Like open the right side. Because you have these ribbon cables right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take... I'm looking, there's 2 PCB boards here. This is kind of like the upper and a lower PCB board. And I'm only taking out the lower one to resolder on that new knob. So I think what I'm going to do here is use a small adjustable, and I'm going to tighten every... Maybe this isn't the one. You're not the one. I'm going to tighten every one of these lock nuts. Make sure there's not, because what can happen is over time, these become loose, and when the lock nut gets loose, then you have your solder points that are like a little more affected by... Yeah, these feel pretty good. You can almost see them. Sometimes you put a really good light. If you start to see almost like a shiny, like little metal shards, it's almost like, you know how if you see like metal shards in your engine, it's a really bad sign. It means like your engine has pieces falling apart. Well, same thing here. It's like the moving parts. If you see, that one's loose. If you see little metal shards in your potentiometer, like this one, it's definitely dirtier. And I can just see there's like goop. It just looks like it's just dirtier, and it has like almost like debris coming up from inside of it. Like the parts have worn out, and the parts that actually physically wore off like migrated up the shaft of that knob, you know, the rotor shaft that you are turning. And all right, so these are all tightened. Now what am I going to loosen? I'm going to look here and see which ones I have to take apart. So basically everything that's like within the fader panel and down. So these are all coming off. Here's a trick. These plastic ones, see how these all have metal shafts? And this has a plastic shaft, but it has a metal kind of piece beneath it. These are just all plastic. Those have a slightly larger nut. So you are going to want to keep those separate and kind of keep track of them. All right, this is becoming like a speed run. I feel like since I know what I'm doing, I've done this repair like 4 times. And only, no, 3 times, 3 or 4 times. And I've only messed up that one time. I've done a lot of repairs, and it was like the one time I'm like, wait, what did I do wrong? Oh, I do. No, I don't. See, I don't. I'm like kind of like remembering the process that's most efficient. All right, let's get this. I'm gonna get my soldering iron turned on. Okay, I'm gonna pause that. Okay, got my soldering iron going. Put a little tip tinner on it. So it's ready to go when I need it. All right. All right. So we're continuing to take this thing apart. You know, I'm making this interesting observation. I don't know if it's coincidence or not, but I have been working closely with DJ Backline for 12 years now. I've been DJing for about 15 and doing all sorts of like equipment related production, like AV related production, and I've kind of seen 3 generations of the Pioneer, kind of the industry standard gear, the Nexus 1 series, Nexus 2 series, and now the CDJ 3000. And I'm starting to notice that sometimes gear is adopted quickly and sometimes not as much. Like the Nexus 2, when it came out, it didn't, like, some writers had it, but some didn't. Like, we brought it as a complimentary upgrade, you know, to one of my favorite artists. It was his Zomboy. He was playing at the old rock house. This was many years ago. and they asked for, you know, a Nexus 2 rig, and we, you know, just thinking that, wow, I love this artist, let's bring him the latest and the greatest. I was like, let's set up the Nexus 2 rig for him, you know, and did that, and their tour manager was like furious about it. He's like, no, this is not correct. And we ended up having to go back and reset it up. But now, then the CDJ 3000s came out, and like everyone was like, let's, like right away, that was like becoming an instant favorite. So it's interesting how like certain lines of gear are more quickly adapted than others. So what we've got now is I've taken off all those lock nuts, and you have these 2 PCB boards and these 2 sets of plastic. This is also another time that might be good for like a personal photo. I often take photos kind of during my setups, which just helps me be consistent with like how I'm doing it. So let's see, where did that, and I'm going to take off this entire large piece of plastic. I think this kind of, I think the main role of this is to keep these ribbon cables from moving around, but it almost seems like it's really big. Like it seems kind of like overkill for that task. Like, why is it, like if you're just trying to manage these ribbon cables, it's like giant piece of plastic. But you know, I'm not a engineer. I'm like a DIY, self-taught. I have to fix this because it's broken, and the only real way to fix it is to like mail it to like Chicago or something. And I'm sure those people are amazing, but I don't live in Chicago, and I also don't have money to ship it 2 ways and afford the repair. Like, I have noticed like whenever a new generation goes out, that's when like the knobs and buttons start going bad in the old generation. Like if you use it semi-regularly. Our gear gets used regularly, but not like super regularly, because it doesn't like live in a venue. It's more for special events, like mobile kind of stuff. But it just depends, actually. It depends on the situation. Sometimes all right, here's the first piece of plastic. It's the smaller one. And now we have this other piece of plastic. Okie dokie. I'm taking all the silver screws for this smaller light green PCB board. And I can access a few more screws with that first piece of plastic being off. And is this enough? All right, my iron is hot. Actually, I should probably get the desoldering iron going first, shouldn't I? Okay, don't want to lose these screws. I'm like so nervous about like just accidentally elbowing something. My desk is just so cluttered, and it doesn't like emotionally bother me. Maybe it does, but kind of just. Okay, let's see here. Okay, here's a button. I feel like this might be easier if I just took off the other plastic piece altogether. Alright, you got a little piece going here into this fader, cross fader, and you got 2 ribbon cables. I know that level depth, here's my knob. Alright, here I am, looking closely. It's, yeah, look at this thing. I don't know how well it's showing up here on the film. Not at all. But you can see the potentiometer is just kind of coming apart. There's like a little gap here. There's like little metal bits. See how it's like coming off on my finger? You probably can't see it well. Sorry, the camera's got to focus. I'm trying my best here. See, it's like I was able to, it's like those are like little metal shavings. So that's a really big indicator of like potentiometer going bad is like, just like your engine. If a moving thing all of a sudden has like parts flying out of it, that's not good. Okay? Not good at all. All right, I'm looking for my tip tinner. So I'm gonna start working on this desoldering iron to take this piece off. So here's the deal. It's still warming up, that's good. Okay. Well, here it is. All right. So this is a desoldering iron. It's like a little vacuum pump that has like a solder tip on it, okay? So I'm gonna get this, you gotta tin it as one does. A little bit of spongy. Then you can suck it. All right. So the way that I do this is you find your PCB, your component that you're taking off your PCB, which is our level depth. What I'll do is I'll kind of push it on there, and I'll kind of almost like rotate it, like kind of like try to almost get all the angles, like almost rotate, like kind of jiggle the desoldering tip around the pin, like almost like ring, like a horseshoe going around the peg, kind of like ringing around there. And what that does is it touches all the solder and melts it completely, and then it also like helps the vacuum kind of suck it up. So what I'm doing is I'm sucking up this solder, which are like the parts of this. It has a tendency to get jammed. This thing's a little finicky. It's like been amazing, but it's also been like a bit of a hassle from time to time. I've also had to take, like, just kind of like, I mean, that's normal service. It's just like things, like knowing how to use it, like I said, just kind of learning as I go, really. Okay, did I get it? Did I get it all? It all feels pretty loose. Oh, there's one more in there. One last little bit of solder I didn't quite get on this one pin. Okay, let's see, did that do it? It did. All right, there's our old broken one. All right. Now I buy these on the internet. And they are, you can get OEM ones. I used to be a real sticker, like, oh yeah, I want original. But they're hard to find. Like, I've noticed that. Okay, that's not a clicky one. Here, the best part of the video is me just fumbling around looking for stuff. There's two types of potentiometer. One has a center click and one doesn't. No center click. Not this bag. 86 is not what I did. Okay. Huh. Put them in a weird spot. But here they are. The part number with the center click is 1065. These are not OEM though, even though they look like it, but they service real well. I mean, and it's hard to find OEM parts for anything that is like, it's just hard to find OEM parts. It seems like, I think Pioneer and Alpha Theta as a brand are like actually not doing so hot. Like they're like, oh yeah, we're the best CDJs ever, but I don't know. I think there's like, when the actual companies are like not doing so great. Okay, so we got that old part off, and I popped a new one in right here. Let me double check it's got that click. Yep, there it is. I can feel it. That center click. Gotta be right. Okay. All right, soldering iron is warming up. Okay, let's go. Here we are. So I like this flat tip. It's a little bit bigger. It's easier to like, to melt the solder well. These flat tips. And it's still like small enough, it's still pretty precise. So put that tip right on there, hold it there for a moment, and then let that solder kind of, you want your joint, the joint is where your solder is going to go. That's got to be like warm enough. I've heard it described as like the perfect solder joint should look like a little volcano. Okay, so you want to have 8 little volcanoes. Okay. Yeah. And that just swap hands. Oh my goodness. All right. Nice. I'm gonna suck a little bit of this off. Ooh, I gotta wait for my, I put too much, I was trying to get that one just right, but I put too much on there. Now I need to suck a little back off. I'll go back to it. What's going on? Okay. I think I bridged those two. Gosh. Of course, the time I film it, I'm like on the struggle bus. That's okay. Mistakes happen. It's not how many times you fall, it's how many times you get back up. All right? Okay, let's get this one soaked up here. All right. Gosh, I feel like I think that's it. This is the first time I feel like I've really needed like a pair of glasses. Or just like a lens, just to help like better visualize the actual solder. I mean, it's not unusual to have like microscopes or like special like kind of video. Looks like almost like it's like a scope, but it's on a TV. Okay, there we go. Got that. Okay. Tip is looking a little rough here. Okay, we got it. There we go. Done. I'm a little rusty. You know, I only do this like once a month. So sometimes it's like doing anything, you get like better as you kind of get warmed up. But hey, there we are. So let's spend a minute thinking about how this is going to go back in. Oh gosh. There you go. All right. Oh, look at that. A button fell out. I missed it. My goodness. All right, keep a workspace clean so you know where things go if you misplace them. All right, so a few things we're going to do. We're going to plug this crossfader back in. Going to kind of just set this in here. Then there was this button that goes over here. Okay. I think we're pretty good here. Yeah, pretty good. Okay, and then all the cables kind of go on top of the bottom piece. And now we're going to put this piece back on. I believe it was this way. Yes, right here. That's kind of how it went. Gosh, I'm tripping. There we go. I use this to see what screws I need to put in first. So it's 1, 2, 3. Kind of remember putting these bottom ones. So let's do that. I always recommend like trying to do the repair all at once. There's definitely like a process and like a sequence of how it all goes back together. And the more time that goes between taking it apart and putting it back together, the trickier it is. And sometimes it's unavoidable. Like sometimes you're just like, well, I have to order a part or something. That's when like I recommend like, oh yeah, take some photos or give yourself a reference. You could even record your own video. You know, I know this is not going to be the fastest paced video, but this isn't the fastest paced repair. Should not do repairs in a hurry. That's why I made that mistake and I shorted out that board. I'd still have a working, I could try to figure out what shorted, but it's probably like one of the major PCB boards. I'm actually certain that that's what it is. And I'm just like not to the point where I could like replace individual components, or I just, it's just beyond my abilities at this time. But, you can, I feel like if I do it all again, I don't know if I'd change anything. But if I was gonna like pick another career, then I'm just like, oh yeah, that sounds cool. I feel like electrical engineering with like circuits and board design and like, learning how to really read and apply circuit diagrams and just knowing how to like find a bad PCB. You can swap out these little IC chips, or I don't know, just depending on what's needed. Okay, so let's put this back on. Let's see if I didn't forget anything. I think I'm good. Famous last words. Famous last words. Okay, so the mixer's back in. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put these washers. Now remember, they're slightly bigger ones, and those go on these plastic ones, and they don't have a spacer. Not a spacer. These nuts don't have a washer, I should say. So they go straight on, and every other one has a washer. So those are gonna go on. Wow, I'm like, actually, we're gonna get this done today. Every other time I've done these, I feel like I always have to like set it aside, come back like a month later, and I don't know. Frying that one board, what I was doing is when I had the top off, I was just like kind of had it powered on. I was just trying anything I could to get the booth monitor responsive. It was just off no matter what. Or, no, what was it? It was like, I don't know. I can't remember exactly what the symptom was, but it just was not responding as expected. So then I'm like, kind of like, okay, let me check this ribbon cable. Okay, let me resolder something on this. And okay, let me try that. But I wasn't powering it down. I wasn't being careful. And I just set it on the frame and it shorted. And all the power on my bench went bad. Like the whole circuit breaker popped because it was like that kind of issue. And I'm like, oh no. I mean, if your circuit breaker pops, that's over 20 amps of electricity, which is, if it's pulling that much, then something is most certainly going to get fried when that occurs. Okay, let's go. We're going to tighten these down. I feel like when I did this other repair, it was a much longer one because I was doing the whole EQ section and I was resoldering every single EQ. I was like really trying to like be like, let's make this mixer like completely refurbish it and replace every possible part that could wear out. And I feel like I talked about so much stuff. I was like really into the video concept. I'm like, oh yeah, I'll like kind of like, oh no, that's what I'm missing. One of my, that's what fell out, was that switch. See what I mean? Like switches just falling out. Okay, well, I'm gonna pause the video. I'm gonna undo what I did and put that switch back in. All right, just kidding, we're not done. Here's my speaker. And here's, I don't have any inputs. I'm just using like a noise filter. Check it out. Good job. Good game, everybody.